So very proud to bring to you our Mayor, Gavin Newsom.
Good morning, everybody. Well, thank you all very much for coming. I was worried because, I live around the corner. I didn't think we'd be able to see 3 feet in front of us with all the fog up here. So I was concerned about the venue, but nonetheless, it is indeed a spectacular day and a great day to celebrate a remarkable individual who's demonstrated a tremendous amount of commitment to the people of not only this district, but the city and county of San Francisco. I had the privilege and pleasure of being on the Board of Supervisors for about 7 years. I was originally elected, or rather originally appointed, as a district supervisor and elected as a district supervisor. I also had the privilege of getting in right before we changed the district elections and had the opportunity to run once citywide. And at the time when we had those citywide elections, there were 11 supervisors for every district. There were 11 supervisors when something went wrong in the southeast sector, or something went wrong in the Mission, or there was an issue down in Eureka Valley. We all went out there. We all had some sense of responsibility to what had occurred and responsibility to try to solve problems. What's happened over the years, though, is we've kind of pulled away from that, back to the notion of district elections. I'm not arguing for or against. I'm arguing a point that I'll make just in a brief second. And what's happened is you find yourself asking for forgiveness when you show up in someone else's district. Or if you show up at a community meeting and the supervisor that was quote-unquote representing that district was out of town, but you showed up and some of your constituents get angry. They said, our supervisor doesn't care about us, but so-and-so does, and your staff start getting into it and start talking about it, and you have to sort of work through those issues, and it takes a little time. But over the course of time, it really does get a bit balkanized, and there is usually just 1 or 2 people that are the strong advocates for issues in particular districts. The significance of saying that, or the purpose of saying that, is I don't think that should be the case. You can still have district elections with a citywide perspective. You can still have district elections with strong representation in the neighborhood that you represent, or the neighborhoods you represent, but with someone that recognizes that we need to reconcile those differences across the other 10 districts in this city. That at the end of the day, we're all in this together. At the end of the day, we're the city and county of San Francisco. We're not just District 1, 2, 5, 10, or 11, or for that matter, even District 8. The reason I am so enthusiastic about Scott is I think he gets that. He recognizes his responsibility is to the people of San Francisco. But at the same time, he has a strong understanding and an intimate appreciation of the unique needs of this district, because he's lived here, he's fought here, he understands the complexity of the issues, he knows the neighborhood, he understands the nuances and the layers, and that's why I think he is an extraordinary candidate to represent this district in the future. He's a person of integrity, he's a person of competency, he's a person, as Amy said, that will stand up against strong ideological opposition. He's someone who's open to argument, interested in evidence. He's not just going to do what you expect him to do just because he comes from a certain this or showed up at a certain that or something. The point is, he's going to listen, and we need elected officials that will listen and that will go the extra mile to open themselves and avail themselves to different points of view. I look forward to working, even if it's for a couple days, with Scott Wiener. It may be more than that, but more importantly, I look forward to representing this city, the city I love, the city I grew up in, the city my daughter lives in, where she's going to grow up, and I just think, few times candidates like this come along. And so it really is incumbent upon all of you to validate his effort, his commitment, and his sacrifice. And I'll close with that. Look, these races are tough races. District races are a whole different animal. And they really are about grassroots. And they really are about knocking on doors. And they really are about presence. And they really are about people getting a sense that there's something going on. You can't buy these races. You can't just do a lot of fancy mail and expect that you're going to win these races. You've got to do the hard work. And that's why it's critical that Scott has you not just today out here on this kickoff, but every single day to get these very visible signs Ashford would be proud, Mark Leto. These orange signs. Make sure that they're out there, they're omnipresent, to make sure that you guys are his surrogates, his eyes and ears, to make sure when he can't make events that you're there making the case for Scott, that you're there righting the wrongs in terms of some things that will be said about Scott. Some people that will say he's about this or that, and you got to get in there and you got to say, that's not what this guy's about. I tell you, I've known him for years. Here's what he stood up for, what he's going to fight for. That's how these races are won. You cannot run the 90-yard dash. You got to run the 100-yard dash on this thing. That means a ton of work, not just getting this guy reelected to the Democratic Central Committee, and God knows how important that is. I'm a Democrat. I'd like to see Democrats back in the Democratic Central Committee. Also build on that into November. So thank you to all the hard-working men and women of labor that are here, that are strongly supportive of Scott. We're honored by your support in the president. All the community leaders, to one of the best supervisors this city has, Carmen Chu, who took the time to be here, also has the right. Got to be there for her. To your former supervisor, my former colleague, and now one of those fancy people in the state with big titles doing extraordinary work, to Mark Leno, who's a big Mark! To Cecil Williams, who I just saw. And all those important people you see behind me that are going to speak in a minute. Thank you all for coming out. Let's get this thing won in November.